All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for our Introduction to Nebula webinar. So today we're going to be talking about Nebula, which is our cloud managed network solution. If you have any questions as we go through today, send them in using the question and answer interface as part of Zoom there. So again, question and answer. Do not raise your hand, don't do chat. I cannot see those as we go through, but I can see questions and answers, so I will do my best to answer those. If it looks a little bit too complex, I may push it out till the end of the presentation to get to it. But for the most part, I'll try to answer questions as we go. So we'll start with what is Nebula. Nebula was the first full stack cloud networking solution for SMB. We launched Nebula all the way back in 2016. At that point, cloud networking was primarily something that was just for enterprise, with the big players in this space being Arrowhive and Cisco's Meraki. So we took a look at that and said, hey, this is really great idea, this cloud managed networking. It simplifies so much, it makes security better. And it seems something that would be ideal for SMB, even more so than it was for enterprise. So that's what we did. We rolled this out. We supported from the get-go wireless LAN, switches, and security appliances. And we've continued to expand it and improvement ever since. So let's talk a little bit about what makes it up. So you've got your hardware, of course. You've got security gateways, switches, access points. These are all can be managed through the Nebula Cloud. And that's what we call the Nebula Control Center, or NCC. You'll see it abbreviated as. So that's really what makes this all possible. NCC is a centralized management platform that is hosted by Amazon AWS. We take care of managing that instance, keeping everything up to date, staying on top of security updates. So there's nothing there that you need to worry about. The devices, the hardware itself has the ability to reach out to the cloud. There's no other devices or configuration needed. If you want to manage it in the cloud, you simply go to the cloud and tell it you want to manage those devices, and you can. We also offer a mobile app. So the mobile app is primarily aimed not so much at configuring your networks, but just keeping an eye on them and adding new equipment to new customers' networks. So why cloud managed networking? So when you're out there deploying and setting up a new customer's network, there's a lot of steps that are involved. And the cloud helps reduce that and reduce the number of things you need to buy, the number of things you need to configure, and just the amount of time you need to spend doing those things. So for instance, you don't need to set up your own or purchase a piece of monitoring software to monitor your networks. The Nebula Cloud does that automatically. Installation is done through the cloud. There's no needing to log into individual devices to configure them. You simply plug them in, they reach out to the cloud and download their configuration. Easy remote access, no needing to set up port forwarding or VPNs, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll go through some of the stuff here that Nebula can do for you. So it can get a new network up and running in just a few minutes. You simply go into Nebula interface, create a new customer, create a new network for them. And we've got a number of wizards and tools there to help simplify the initial setup, as well as just some very basic default settings that will get connected equipment up and running right out of the gate there. When it comes to setting up and configuring things, you can start configuring your devices before you even take them out of the box. For many features and settings, you can start configuring them before you finally decided which specific hardware you're going to purchase. So basically, at any point, you can log into Nebula. At any point, you can go into the network, and many of those network settings can start to be configured before you've assigned any hardware to that instance. Once you do receive the hardware, you simply use our mobile app. You scan the QR code, which can be found on the outside of the box, or can be found on the belly label of the product. You simply scan that in and assign it to your customer, and it's there for you to start configuring. So you can then take that box, ship it out to the customer location, and as soon as that device is plugged in, has power and an internet connection, it will see that it has been designated to be managed in the cloud, and it will automatically download firmware updates and configurations. Now, there are some exceptions to that. There's one series of switches, the 1350 series of switches, and some of our security gateways that require a couple of extra steps, but all Other switches and all of our access points are simply scan and go. So the agent that talks to the cloud is built into all of our Nebula compatible hardware. So there's nothing else you need to buy. So there's no cloud keys, there's no controllers, there's no software that needs to be configured, there's no virtual machines that need to be spun up. It's simply what's built into the hardware locally and then our cloud hosted solution. And the idea behind Nebula here is basically anywhere you've got a web browser and an internet connection, you have access to all of your customers' networks, whether that's to keep an eye on them, perform some maintenance, or help troubleshoot issues that you may have. As long as you've got internet and a web browser, you can be managing those networks. So we do also provide for guest access. So out of the box with Nebula, all of our access points offer a captive portal. If you'd like to offer captive portal through non-Zycel access points, you can buy one of our gateways, and our gateways can also provide their own captive portal functionality to non-Zycel gateways, non-Zycel devices. But our captive portal is really flexible. If you log into the Nebula interface, we've got the ability to sort of customize what they can see there through our little editor that's built into Nebula. For a lot of you, that's not going to be enough. You want more control over what the user sees when they get to that captive portal. So we allow you to download the HTML and CSS files, so you can modify those to host and create, a much more customized experience through the portal. You can also point users to your own hosted web page somewhere for even more customization or additional features. So this is something that you would use, for people, vendors or customers visiting one of your customers, or providing more sort of a public hotspot type service. We have a lot of flexibility with how the guests log in. We can just do a simple TOS where they agree to the terms of service before they go out. You can have them register an email address before they get on. You can have them log in with the username and password you provide. A lot of flexibility there on how the captive portal and guest access can work. On the wireless side of things, it's got all the features you would expect from a modern wireless LAN solution. We offer mesh functionality on all of our access points, including a smart mesh function. So if you have access points that are hardwired into your network, and for some reason they get unplugged or disconnected upstream and there is no wired connection anymore, they can automatically switch themselves into mesh mode and find a nearby access point that still has a working connection and wirelessly backhaul to that. So users connected to that access point still have functionality until you get that hardwired connection fixed. We of course support WPA2 and WPA3, both pre-shared key and enterprise grade security there. And we support all of the industry standards for roaming, 802.11r, K, and V. On the switch side of things here, we offer our intelligent PoE is available through Nebula. So that's a feature we have that frees up additional PoE budget versus based on the industry standard 802.3 AT AFBT. They have a tendency to reserve more power than is required for devices that are connected. So our intelligent PoE can determine how much power really is needed by connected devices and free up that budget for additional devices. So you can put more devices onto the same switch without having to increase the PoE power budget. We offer all sorts of forms of network protection here on our switches, ACL rules, VLANs, 802.1x authentication, LoopGuard, DHCP, Server Guard, etc. And we allow you to virtually stack your switches. So you don't need to have the switches connected directly to each other. We can virtually stack them in the Nebula interface, so that way you can go in and change settings across ports on multiple switches at the same time. All updates done through Nebula are done over the air. There should be no reason for you to actually have to directly log into an individual device on the network or be locally there to access it. You just simply make the changes in the Nebula cloud, and within a couple minutes, they will automatically get pushed out to the connected devices. This is also true for firmware, where firmware will be pushed out for you, and you can go ahead and schedule that for your individual customers based on what's convenient for you. Whether you want new firmware pushed out immediately or whether you want to wait for a certain date and time to push it out, that can all be done through Nebula. On the security side of things, we have our easy VPN functionality. It makes it really easy to do site-to-site VPNs between Nebula managed networks. You simply go into the Nebula interface, choose the sites that need to be networked together, choose the topology, and then click apply, and we take care of everything else. For remote users that are using L2TP, we do have the ability to email out scripts that can handle automatically configuring the VPN settings in the built-in VPN clients. This works for Windows, for Apple iOS, and excuse me, for Apple OS, and then iOS apps. Unfortunately, it doesn't work for Android. So Nebula was designed from the ground up, from our very first days, as being a platform that's designed to make it easy for you to manage all of your customers and all of your customers' networks. So because of that, we make it really easy to jump between customers and jump between networks once you're logged into Nebula. So here's an example here of the main primary Nebula interface. So when you log in here, you get a list of all of your customers here. You go in, you choose your customer, and you get a list of all of the sites that your customer has. We've got a pull down menu up here, so you can quickly use the pull down menu to switch between customers. You can see all of their sites. So in this case, this is a customer that's got a number of different physical sites. You can use Google Maps integration to put the different locations onto a Google map for easy visualization. And then you get a brief look here of what's going on that network, how many clients are connected, the site health, if any devices are offline, etc. And then when you click down into an individual site, it takes you to the site dashboard. So the site dashboard gives you a number of different widgets. Now these widgets are customizable, so you can choose which widgets you want up on your screen when you first log into a customer, but it can show you things like how many of a certain type of device are online, how many wireless users are online, PoE utilization versus budget. If you're using one of our Nebula managed security gateways, you can see all sorts of information about individual users and individual applications that are being used on the network, how much bandwidth they're consuming, etc. Again, up at the top, we've got those drop-down menus, so you can quickly jump from site to site or customer to customer. And then on the left-hand side here, you've got individual menus for different things here, such as MSP settings, site-wide settings, specifically for certain types of products, security gateway, switch, access point, etc. So we'll take a look here at some of the views that we get here. So here's our monitoring view for access points. This is just showing us here the individual clients. So again, we've got a lot of information on the clients, and we do have the ability to customize which information is being seen. So you can remove anything here you don't care about, but it shows you like, is this user currently connected or are they disconnected? Which SSID were they connected to, what their signal strength was, which band they were on, which type of wireless LAN client they were, et cetera, et cetera. And then you can also see over time utilization of that wireless network. On the switch side of things, we've got a visual representation of the switch up at the top of the page. So you can quickly see the speed of connected devices based on the color of the ports. Gray is nothing plugged in. Green is gigabit, and then we've got a fast 100 device, I believe, on that orange one there. And then the letter P indicates whether or not that port is currently powering something via PoE. And again, we've got another usage chart here we can look at, which shows utilization of that switch over time. And again, you can choose what amount of time you want to see there. Then we've got some other tools here for you, such as the ability to ping devices, et cetera, or ping from the switch out to the internet, et cetera. So if you want to configure ports, you simply select all the ports you want to configure, and it pulls up this setting display here where you can quickly change a number of different settings and then just click apply, and it'll apply those across all the ports you had selected. So, and everything pretty much up to this point that we've talked about is free. Nebula does not require a subscription. It does not require licenses to use the core functionality. And this is something that to this day sets us apart from all of our competitors, both in the SMB space and in the enterprise space. So there is no limit to the number of customers you can manage with the free version of Nebula. There's no limit to the number of devices you can manage. It is all there for you, and all the core functionality is there. Now, we do offer some licenses which unlock additional features. Some of them are additional Nebula features. We've also got additional licenses for various security features, and we'll talk about those in a few more slides here. So when you're looking for something that works with Nebula, you're looking for the term Nebula Flex. So when we first launched Nebula back in 2016, we had followed the Cisco model, where with Cisco, if you wanted cloud management, you had to buy Meraki branded hardware. If you wanted local management, you had to buy Cisco branded hardware. With Zycel now at this point, we've gotten away from that model, and now pretty much most of our products will work with either or, and we call that Nebula Flex. So when you're looking at the data sheets or the product listing or the price list, if you see something labeled Nebula Flex, that's telling you you can use it managed in the cloud, or you can manage it directly, either or. So those are two different modes that you can switch between. They are configured independently of each other, but at any point you can convert a device that's Nebula Flex from standalone into Nebula managed mode, or convert it back from Nebula mode back to standard mode. So that way, you can standardize on certain models of hardware, regardless of which of your customers are using cloud management versus local management. You will see some products labeled Nebula Flex Pro. For most products, the Pro just means that there's 1 year of our Pro Pack license bundled with it. So Pro Pack is one of those additional optional licenses that I'll talk about here in a few slides. So that's something that comes bundled with those devices. In the case of access points, Nebula Flex Pro also means that device can be managed with a local controller. So if you don't want to use Nebula, but you want to manage your access points with a local controller, you still want to be looking for Nebula Flex Pro products. Only Nebula Flex Pro products can work with a local controller. So just to give you an idea quickly here on the hardware, which can work with Nebula, on the Nebula Flex side of things, we've got our SMB and business-oriented access points that start with the numbers 1 or 2. On the switch side of things, we have the GS 1920 V2 series and the 1930 series switches. And then on our security gateways, if you buy a USG Flex that is not bundled with any licenses, that will support Nebula Flex. Then if you want Nebula Flex Pro, it's all of our SMB and business class access points that start with the number 5 or 6. On the switch side of things, it's the GS 1350 series switches, the GS 2220 series, and the 3800 series that come bundled with that 1 year Pro license. And then on the security gateway side, it gets kind of weird. Any USG Flex that comes bundled with UTM services will include 1 year of Pro Pack bundled with it. On the ATP series, it is the gold license that comes with it, will include also Nebula. And then on the USG Flex, going back to them, if you buy a gold license for a USG Flex, that also includes Nebula should you want to use it, or excuse me, the Nebula Pro Pack if you want to use it. Okay, now we can start talking about licensing. So again, there is the base pack, which is free. So that gets you all the core management of your devices, and again, no limitations. And we, in a couple slides here, I'll go through a pretty comprehensive list of features and tell you which comes with which of these. We have our Plus Pack, which is an inexpensive license that unlocks some additional features. And this has been designed to sort of compete with like TP-Link and Netgear's cloud solutions. And then we have our Pro Pack, which we've had since we launched Nebula back in the day. And this is our full featured pack that's really designed towards those of you that are providing managed services. So when you're in the Nebula interface, we've got a couple different things. We've got what we call organizations, and then under those organizations are sites. So in general, an organization is a customer. So if you have a customer and you want them to use the Plus or Pro Pack license, every device on every site under that organization needs to have a license assigned to it. So if any device doesn't have a license, it will not activate the Plus or Pro Pack licenses and those extra features. They all must have a valid license. Now, if you have a network that you've upgraded and you've added licenses to everything and something is now expiring, we will give you notifications in advance letting you know that you've got devices that are going to need a new license. If you don't get that new license on there in time, you are given a 15-day grace period, where you will get emails every day basically saying, hey, this device expired. We're going to degrade your network back to the free version if you don't add a new license on there for you. So just keep that in mind. In cases where you have a customer where some sites need to have the licensed version of Nebula and some sites don't, you would split that into two different organizations. So now let's talk about, what comes with each of these different versions of Nebula here. The free version, the Plus Pack, and the Pro Pack. So all of them give you unlimited number of devices to manage. All of them give you our zero-touch plug-and-play deployment where you don't need to configure anything on the individual device. All of them will do firmware management through the cloud and let you schedule firmware updates. All of them get you access to our mobile apps. One of the first areas here where we're starting to see some differences here when it comes to logging information. So the free version of Nebula, we just keep 24 hours worth of logs stored in the cloud for you. If you need more than that, you can upgrade to the Plus or Pro Pack, or we do also support syslog servers. So you can always export your logs to your own syslog server if you need more logs but don't want to upgrade from the free version of Nebula. Plus Pack gets you 7 days of logs stored in the cloud, and Pro Pack gets you a full year's worth of logs stored in the cloud automatically for you. When it comes to admin accounts, that's another area where we've got some differences. The free version of Nebula gives you 5 admin accounts per organization or per customer. So if you need more than that, the Plus Pack will give you 8 admins, and the Pro Pack has an unlimited number of admins for you. We also have a cloud authentication server. So this is a cloud hosted database. You can use it for MAC filtering. You can use it for 802.1x authentication. You can use it for captive portal authentication. So the free version of Nebula limits that database to 50 entries. Plus Pack gets you 100 entries, and Pro Pack gives you an unlimited number of entries. For most features, again, we do support Radius. So if you don't want to use the cloud hosted version of our database here, you can always have an unlimited number of devices stored in your own hosted Radius server. So scheduling things like broadcasting certain SSIDs, turning PoE on and off automatically based on time. That's available across all versions of the Nebula here. MAC filtering and 802.1x authentication is available across all of them. Captive portals available across all of them. So now where we get to some features here that require a license and are not available in the free version of Nebula. Advanced firmware scheduling. So again, the free version does give you scheduling. The Plus and Pro Pack give you advanced scheduling. It lets you go in there and gives you a lot more flexibility with how you set up the schedules. You can schedule switches to update at a certain time and access points at a different time and security gateways at a different time. You can set up individual rules for firmware updates, scheduling based on individual devices, things like that. Advanced reporting. We have a number of reports that Nebula can generate for you, and they can automatically email those to you or your customers on a scheduled basis. So that's something both Plus and Pro offer. You also have the ability to add your logo information to that email. So if you're emailing it to your customers, they'll always see your branding included on that report. An automatic network topology view. Basically, we'll go through and graphically draw out your network for you, showing you which devices are connected to which other devices. So it's helpful if you're troubleshooting a connectivity issue. So you can try to figure out, which switch is this particular access point plugged into, et cetera. Email users and alert notifications. That's something that requires Plus and Pro Pack. So if a device goes offline, you can set up a push notification through the mobile app. And then the use of Wi-Fi vouchers. So Wi-Fi vouchers are a type of automatically generated username and password that are good for a certain period of time. So it's something that's popular to be used in like coffee shops or small hotels where they're really controlling who has access to that guest network. That requires the Plus or Pro Pack. And then the Pro Pack unlocks a lot of MSP type features. So one of them is a user audit and change log, so you can see which users made which configuration changes when, if you're troubleshooting things. The ability to synchronize certain settings between different customers, the ability to clone different customers and use templates, that requires the Pro Pack. We have the ability to do backup and restoration of different configs on your switches. That's a Pro Pack feature. The ability to open a ticket directly with our headquarters in Taiwan, that's a Pro Pack feature. Advanced Wi-Fi control, including the ability to use artificial intelligence to automatically tweak Wi-Fi settings based on issues we see on the wireless network, that requires the Pro Pack. Advanced AAA, that requires the Pro Pack. In-depth, what's the term I'm looking for here? Advanced IGMP snooping, that requires the Pro Pack. We also have the ability to automatically, on the switches, automatically assign VLANs to individual devices based on the first so many digits of their MAC address. So you can, for instance, say, okay, all of my IP phones are coming from this vendor. Here's this vendor's MAC ID. I just put in those first few digits that identify the vendor, and then any phone that gets plugged into the network would automatically get put onto the voice VLAN, for instance. And the ability to do packet captures through the cloud, that's something that requires the Pro Pack. And then collaborative detection and response, so that security coordination between access points and the security gateway requires the Pro Pack. So again, if at any point you drop out of the Pro Pack, it simply goes back to the free version. At no point do you get locked out of the ability to manage your devices. And of course, at any point, you can always convert your devices back into standalone mode. So we've got some slides here just really quick. This is just showing that artificial intelligence on the wireless, how we can track the quality of connections for individual users. And based on what we see with that, we can make changes to those wireless settings to help try to reduce those issues. On the switch side of things, we've got advanced IPTV reporting functionality that's built into the cloud. Again, we can take a look and see what we seem to see as problems and give you suggestions as to what settings to change to get rid of those issues. Here's that automatic network topology view I was talking about, where we automatically map out what devices are connected to which other devices upstream. So that's it as far as the per device licenses go. We have another type of license that's called the MSP Pack. Now, this license is assigned not to an individual device or an individual customer of yours. This is a license for your admin accounts. So any admin account that gets this MSP license assigned to it unlocks these features and gives that particular admin account access to these features. So one of the features that MSP license gives you access to is the MSP view here. So this is similar to the view we showed you earlier, where when you could choose a customer and it showed you what was going on their sites. This gives you a view which shows you all of your customers, lets you know which customers are using the free version of Nebula, which ones are using the paid version of Nebula. If they're using one of those paid optional licenses, it tells you when they're expected to expire. Shows you how many sites each customer has, and gives you an idea of the status of connected devices that have been assigned to those customers. Some of the other features it gives you here is MSP branding. So you can remove the Zycel branding from the Nebula interface and add your own company's branding to that interface. You can remove our support information and replace it with your company's support. So if you're giving your users or your customers access to manage their own networks, this may be something you'd be interested in. For larger MSPs where you've got a lot of different admins, it can be kind of difficult at times to manage all of those. So the MSP license gives you access to teams. So you can create individual teams and then assign those teams to individual organizations that you're managing, rather than having to do it on a user by user basis. So it just makes it a little bit easier there. Gives you the ability to synchronize settings between different organizations. Also, one of the features here is it allows that account, the admin account, to get email notifications for all of your organizations that one manages, regardless of whether they're using the free version of Nebula or the Plus or Pro pack. So normally that would require a Plus or Pro license. If you're an admin account and you have this MSP license, all of those orgs that you have access to have the ability to send up email or push alerts to you. So now let's talk a little bit about security. So as mentioned earlier, the Nebula solution is hosted in the cloud. So there's nothing that you need to worry about as far as securing your servers, keeping patches up to date on web servers and things like that. That's all handled by us. Firmware updates are pushed out to the cloud. But there's another type of security here, and that's the security services that are built into primarily our security appliances, right? Those advanced security features that are part of our firewall security products. Basically UTM type services, antivirus hosted on the gateway, IDP hosted on the gateway, content filtering hosted on the gateway, et cetera, et cetera. So we have a couple different types of security licenses, and the features in those depend on the type of hardware that you're buying them for. So if you have one of our old NSG gateways, to unlock these UTM services, you would need the NSS security pack. If you are using a USG Flex, you would use the UTM security pack to unlock those UTM features. If you're using the ATP series, you would buy a gold license. And then we also have the secure Wi-Fi license or remote AP license. And this basically allows you to convert an access point into a remotely managed VPN appliance. So this is an easy way to be able to provide remote workers easy access to the corporate network without worrying about configuring, VPN software on the individual devices, or worrying about giving them a VPN appliance that gets them double netted behind what they've already got at home. So with this solution, it allows you to set up a remote AP with a special SSID. Any device that connects to that SSID gets put through its basically a VPN tunnel back to the corporate office and will get access to those corporate resources. Now, obviously, you don't want the kids at the house and visitors logging into your corporate network through employees. So this SSID is secured using 802.1x authentication and can also be used, can also require two-factor authentication before being granted access to that tunnel. But it's really simple. You simply, send the employee home or ship out to the employee one of our access points. They plug it into whatever existing gateway or router they have at home. And then they simply connect to that special SSID to get access to the corporate network when they need it. We've also got another type of I'm going to call it a UTM Light Appliance. And this is a license that's just for the access points. And basically it uses IP reputation filters to block sites and attacks based on known bad IP addresses. So here's an example here. We have the ability to block spam sources, botnets, phishing sites, places that are responsible for denial of service attacks, proxies, things like that. So this is something that's being provided to wireless users connected to those APs. And this is something that basically is done on a per AP basis. So maybe you've got a public area where you want to add this additional security. You simply add these licenses to those APs in that area. The APs that don't have the license just don't offer the service. So unlike the regular Plus and Pro Pack, where every device needs the license, with Connect and Protect, it's just whatever devices you want to have that feature need that security. So you can see here CNP works on the NWA 1123 ACV3, the WAC 500, and the WAC 500H. We have a more advanced version called CMP Plus, which gives you, in addition to that reputation filter, also allows you to put into effect bandwidth throttling rules on an application basis. So you can individually bandwidth limit specific applications rather than specific users. And that works on the NWA 110AX, the 210AX, and then the WAX series, the 510D, the 610D, the 630S, and the 650S. So if any of this sounds interesting to you, we do have a live demo available. Simply go to nebula.zycel.com, click Get Started, and then at the bottom, there should be a button to take you over into the live demo. which is a couple of different hotels we've got set up using Nebula. So you can go in there and look at the interface, look at the information you have. If you are one of our reseller partners who has joined our partner program, you can reach out to your salesperson. That would be either Jacob, Andy, or David, and request a demo. It's a 60-day demo. We'll send you out the hardware for that, and you can play with that in your lab before either sending it back or choosing to buy it. In addition, if you've already got customers, you've already deployed some Nebula and you want to try out the MSP license, or you want to try out Connect and Protect, or you want to try out the Pro Pack, we offer through the Nebula interface the ability to activate 30-day demos of most of those different licensed features. So you can test them out yourself on your existing networks. And then lastly here, I just want to draw your attention to our YouTube channel. There's a lot of different Zycel YouTube channels because unfortunately Zycel's a multinational company. So stuff that's done here in North America will get republished under Zycel America channel. So today's webinar will get uploaded there probably by the end of business tomorrow. Just go to Zycel America channel. Any webinars we've done that you've missed, you can find them there. We also upload video case studies, some helpful like walkthrough how to configure thing documents, all sorts of stuff. So that's where you want to go. And then you can always connect with us on our LinkedIn. There we are Zycel US channel. And with that, guys, that ends today's webinar. If you have some questions, go ahead and send them in using the question and answer interface. If you have something you want to reach out to me offline about, my email's up there on the screen, seanr@zycel.com. Dan's asking about commenting on Astra endpoint protection. And no, I don't know too much about it. I know it's our mobile protection app. It is something that's handled by the security team through our security devices. I believe Try is doing webinars on those. So if we've already done one, and I'm not sure if we have, you'll be able to find it on our YouTube page. If not, I believe Try has some coming up here where he will be talking a little bit more about that. I unfortunately am not that familiar with it, so I couldn't provide any really comprehensive answers about Astra, unfortunately. I'm not seeing any other questions. I'll hang out here for just another minute. But again, thank you guys for joining us. We do a number of different webinars. I cover webinars on wireless and the cloud managed networking. Try is our security manager and switches. So he does webinars on the switches. He does webinars on, if you want to learn more about the ATP or the USG Flex or Astra, he's the guy who puts those on. And then Marcus is our sales engineer. So for those of you looking for more technical presentations, you want to be shown how to configure things, where to find stuff in the interface, the webinars that Marcus puts on, or again, that you can find his past ones on YouTube, those are the ones you want. Those come from Marcus. And then our sales guys also, I know some of them put on their own individual presentations about different topics. So no questions have come in, so I'm going to go ahead and end today's webinar. Thank you, everybody. If there is something you need to ask or something you think of later, just reach out to your salesperson and they can forward it to me.